Hi, you are watching SightsIn Plus, and this is Romesh. Please to subscribe the channel for the HR news, for HR updates and conversation with the top-notch CHROs, thought leaders, and business heads. Today, we are going to discuss discrepancies in employment verifications. Joining us, Ms. Urvashi Verma. She is Head Talent Acquisition at Xperi, and Mr. Sahil Nayar, a renowned HR thought leader. Welcome, both of you, to SightsIn Plus. Recently, a report is released by the Authbridge, and according to this report, 44% there's a rise in the discrepancies when we talk about the background checks. Before we go detailed into the report, very first I would like to know that what are the common discrepancies you see when you go for the background checks?
So Romesh, in general, when we do background verifications of each of our, prospective potential hires and candidates in process, majorly what discrepancies we see that in terms of incorrect tenure of their jobs in previous organizations, their job titles, designations, or the major one of the main thing which I have noticed is like reason of their job changes. Sometimes they want to hide if they have been terminated or if there was any clash between them and organization and they had to leave the organization. We are seeing a lot of companies laying off their employees from past 2 3 years. Still people think that this is something which is not very, they're not very comfortable sharing that, though it's everybody in the industry knows that which companies are laying off and what is the impact on overall population of workforce now. Still candidates are not very comfortable sharing that. So these kind of discrepancy I see most of the time. This is my experience into that.
And Sahil, what is your take on this?
I think Ramesh, Urvishi's answered that so beautifully, and I don't have anything much to add because she's covered all the discrepancies, but I'll just try and answer this slightly differently. I think it also matters which segment of employees are you looking at? Are you looking at juniors, mid-level, or seniors, right? Because the kind of checks that you would do would also vary based on the seniority of the person that you're hiring. Many a times, in addition to what Urvashi has already said, we see people who don't mention certain organizations that they've worked with, even though it's a short period of time. We also see that people either mention names of organizations which may belong to a relative or a friend, and those are actually dummy organizations or dummy kind of work that people would have done in those organizations, because when you get into the details of the business or the kind of work the person's done, you end up noticing that just to show, because many a times, and I think the problem is not with the candidates or the employees. The problem is with the way we perceive career breaks. And until and unless we don't normalize career breaks, people will not have this desire or will have more of this desire to try and fill in that break rather than be upfront and say, hey, you know what? I took a 6-month break, or there was a lot of toxicity in my current organization, and therefore I decided to take a break. Or I had actually whistleblown in the organization that I was working, and it turned out to be very unfavorable and it was getting very nasty. So I, for my own mental peace, decided to take a break. So unless we don't normalize this part, because people want continuity of employment and they want another job, they find ways and means to cover that gap, is what one has heard of instances, one has read of instances, and one has interacted with people who've had such instances. The second thing that I want to highlight at a very senior level is today we see a lot of checks that happen on social profiling, on social media, on how people go out and interact on social media. And you see that the kind of detailed reports that come in on social media footprints at times don't go sync in sync with what people say in conversations. And therefore, that comes out very subtly as a discrepancy, though, of course, it's not a final check that comes in, but it's just an add-on that comes in. So the point I wanted to make is three things, summarizing. One, the kind of checks that you do, the discrepancies that you see vary from junior, mid to senior management. And second, the whole mindset of career breaks and therefore normalizing that so that people don't have to fill in the gaps that they've had and put in dummy information. And three is the whole piece on social media and social media footprints.
Excellent. I think you have highlighted very important point that at what level the employee is, that also matters. What the position is, that matters a lot. Second, if I look at the report, so there are to find out the reason of the change, that is also a challenge. And according to this report, there is a rise in education discrepancies. It is 20%. There's a rise in address verification. There's a fall from 6% to 4%. And drug test, so that is a 65%. There's a rise. And another important discrepancy is court cases. If there are any court cases, so generally people hide. So these are also a couple of discrepancies which they have highlighted. Now we are coming, what are the reasons generally you see, what are the reasons, what are the factors which are responsible? That's why we see such kind of the discrepancies in background checks.
Maybe I'll take a first stab at that, and then obviously, Urvashi, you can come in. I'm going to share with all of you, Romesh, Urvashi, and all your viewers who are going to see this, right? Just 2 days ago, a very close friend of mine was driving around Bombay post midnight, okay? And she was with her mother in her car. She was stationed at a red light. It was a red light. The car had halted, and they were around 30 seconds left for the red light to turn green. Someone from behind comes on a bike and bangs the car from behind. All right. The person falls down, injures himself. She gets out of her car to check what has happened, and this person is profusely bleeding, falling off the bike. Within a couple of minutes, I'm going to expedite the story because the learning is more important than just the story. But a crowd comes across and everybody blames her because she is a woman and a woman doesn't know how to drive, and so-called mindset. And the fact that the allegation on her is you suddenly braked and therefore the person behind you on the bike banged your car from behind. Fast forward, we get into a conversation. I tell her, don't worry, don't wait for a woman cop to come and only then go. She goes to the police station, they take her records, blah, 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 blah. They want to register a case. Now, come to think of this, the person is not at fault. There is enough evidence on CCTV camera that the car was stationed, but yet a case is registered. Now, in cases like this, if that particular individual, or for that matter, anybody else, and most of these court cases that you're referring to, and we've seen this enough in our experience, are generally traffic cases. Of course, there are some cases around matrimony, and there are some cases in other avenues, which we won't get into right now. But most of the cases generally are small, petty offenses, not grave. The grave ones, of course, are red flagged in BGVs, and you need to deal with them very differently. But some of these cases, people generally don't want to talk about because they think that the whole mindset is if I bring it up or I make a disclosure, it may just be held against me without people actually getting into the nitty-gritty of it. Or some of the cases also are sub judice. And because they are sub judice and the verdict is not out, it may still appear as an amber and it may impact my employment. So that's the reason why we have seen, many instances where, and we've heard from friends and colleagues, instances where people don't make a disclosure rather than making a disclosure, putting the facts out, and then letting the organization decide. Because organizations also, to my mind, have very stringent policies as far as these cases are concerned, rather than looking at it on case-to-case basis. Of course, many organizations today are out there examining every single case, which according to me is the right thing to do.
Sometimes the cases are sub judice, and sometimes also the candidate think maybe it is relevant to employment or not. So should I disclose or not? So maybe they are in dilemma, sometimes not able to decide. So this may be one of the factor. So Urvashi, as I said earlier, that according to this report, there's a 40% rise in the discrepancies when we talk about employment checks. According to you, what are the reasons why there is huge rise in last 3 years? They're talking about 2021 to 2024. Why this is huge rise?
Yeah, since 2021, we all are aware that moonlighting is something, everybody is talking, every organization is facing challenges. Employees are working at the same time with 2 to 3 organizations, freelancing, and not putting, the right effort to their primary employers. Similarly, people looking out for job, when they are looking out for job, they are grabbing couple of offers and joining everywhere because of the remote location. So those things, I think, contributed a lot in raising these discrepancies, because it is definitely not, not right to work at the same time with the multiple organization as per our law. And this has contributed a lot in last 2 3 years, which has raised probably this to 44%. I also heard that you stating about raise in education discrepancy, which was not so much earlier, and recently it has gone. I have seen that people are giving this information, though they have given correct information, it is coming as red or amber, because I have seen many universities shutting down in last 2 3 years, 4 years. We have seen that students are not able to go to universities, which impacted their model of education, and due to which they have to shut down their university. They don't have any backup support also to provide right information to employers, whether these students were there in last couple of years, or 5 years, 8 years back they have studied in those organization. With a lot of private universities in India, this has also contributed a little bit, while we say that increase in discrepancies in last 3 years.
See, as you said, with the moonlighting, so that may be definitely it was impacting 2021, 2022. But if we look at the report, so it talks about IT and ITS, there is 9.8%. That's the least discrepancies. And we have seen the impact of moonlighting in IT and ITS. Other sector, if you see, telecom sector, that is the highest according to this report, that is 18.2%, pharma 17.1%, FMCG 17%, BFSI sector 10.4%. So overall, what report talks about?
So yes, maybe for IT and ITAS it is least. Maybe it is not, we are not able to identify all the cases in this, but we have, every day we are countering these kind of discrepancies in our reports. Every industry used to impact each other. There are much better ways to hide these things in IT and ITAS, whereas I see that FMCG and pharmaceutical, it's more of a people interaction kind of industry. They are not, fulfill all their job responsibilities sitting at one place throughout the month, which is not the case with ITES. Probably that's the reason that it is coming out more prominent in other industries as compared to ITES.
And Sahil, how do you see the data-wise, what are the discrepancies I just talked about?
Romesh, if I just look at it, go back to 1887, right? Lord Acton at that point of time had very, very categorically said that power tends to corrupt, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that is so relevant for this report and the way things are playing out, right? Earlier, everybody used to get to office. Even if you were busy, not as busy, you would end up spending 8 hours in office. You would punch in, you would punch out. The moment COVID happened, suddenly it's like, think of it as an analogy. Guys who went to boys' school suddenly started going to college and went to college and they saw girls around, right? It is as insane as that. Because everybody got so much of freedom, psychological safety also got challenged because people started worrying, will I have my job tomorrow? Will I not have my job tomorrow? Organizations that did a very good job of giving that psychological safety to people that your jobs will remain intact, your compensation will not be reduced, you will see generally attrition there was much, much lower. And I'm not getting into the name of organizations or the industry, but I'm giving you the overall. Therefore, some of those organizations were letting go of people who were in a situation, were not performing well. They used this as an opportunity. And of course, right sizing as well. Fast forward, come to the employees side of it. Employees also realized that I may lose my job tomorrow and therefore went out to other people who were giving them other opportunities. Now, Unfortunately, because the law in the country on moonlighting is not sacrosanct and therefore playing in that manner, people also said, if I make a disclosure, going back to the earlier point, I will lose my job. And therefore, I will not take approvals, whether it is selling Diwali sweets around Diwali and being a coder, or whether it is teaching at a college and being a marketing professional at an organization. People didn't make disclosures. And when organizations became more and more alert on these aspects, they realized that there is a double income. And on aspects where there was a double income, organizations took this very seriously. So to corroborate with your report, the point that I'm trying to make is fundamentally very simple, that in instances where we saw discrepancies increasing is where disclosures didn't happen. Areas where disclosures didn't happen is where individual psychological safety was challenged and the fear looming around their heads to say, will I have the job tomorrow? Whereas people who were secure, you would have seen that the instances were much lower or disclosure didn't happen and people were not doing it.
Yeah, I would like to add here, if organization explains to each employee that what is code of conduct or conflict of interest, those kind of policies, if being described to all the employees properly, they will be able to make right decision. Even if they want to have extra income, they can do something which allows to them as a employee of this organization. For this particular area they cannot work, but they can utilize their further skills to have extra incomes, which might have been little more accepted by the organization and could have given opportunities to employees as well to get some extra incomes.
Yeah, absolutely. Insecurity, not sure if they are going to disclose, then the job is gone, or what is going to happen, not sure. Absolutely, this is one of the reasons. Another reason what I see might be we have seen also such cases earlier, but we were not able to detect. Now we have the technology, we can detect the more and more cases. Sahil, what is your take on this?
A very valid point that earlier, I think even the focus was not there on something like this. But with the way we've seen, just look at it, right? Earlier, how would a scam happen? A scam would happen when you would physically rob someone. Today, scams are happening when you're robbing data. And you have a bio scam, you have a data scam, and you have a cloning scam with deep fake taking center stage. Forget just lip syncing. You can have somebody else's face altogether on your face and you wouldn't even realize. I could have Romesh's face on my face and write Romesh Srivastav, talk in exactly Romesh's voice and conduct this interview. Let's say if Romesh couldn't do it tomorrow. And no one would even get to know. And that's the kind of technology that's available. So if on one end of the spectrum, if humans are building this technology, on the other end of the spectrum, there are also humans who are concerned about how business is going to get impacted because of this technology. And therefore, you're right, Romesh. The focus, the ability to find out that pilferation is not happening, and very clearly, the person who you're speaking with or seeing virtually is the same person who you're meeting in person. Because while everybody was saying hybrid is great and it's okay even doing a virtual interview, today, many organizations who are investing in roles definitely want to meet people in person because deep fake is taking center stage.
Right. So, when we see such kind of the report that discrepancies are on rise, what you see that what is the role of HR here, that how they can work on this and how they can minimize these discrepancies. One, already you told me that some kind of policies were you clarify so that people disclose, they don't hesitate to disclose. So how do you see what is the further HR can do to improve the situation?
I think first and foremost, we have to, improve or sensitize our recruiting teams. They should not be hesitant in connecting with a person who have a career break or who have switched their jobs quickly, frequently, or there are some reasons because of this person is not working for some times. So there is, I have always seen that recruiters are very hesitant to reach out to these people for opportunities, and that's why they are somehow come up with a solution of getting some fake employment, as Sahil said earlier. So to avoid all those things, we should at least try to at least create an environment which is very inclusive to get all the candidates who are having the right skills, instead of somebody is having career break or anything, such as Sahil also mentioned about her friends, his friend's example. If she somehow disclosed this to a recruiter, and the recruiter is not mature enough to understand the seriousness or impact of this case on her job profile, then probably at that time the recruiter will drop her candidature and do not process her for further hiring process, which probably definitely will demotivate the candidates. So if we are open to know what went wrong or what was the past situation of each candidate, and take the right decision, analyze that as per what is right for our organization and what is not going to work for our organization, and do an analytical or fact-based decision on those kind of people, then probably people are more open to share their information, which will lead to lesser discrepancy.
Many times, a couple of discrepancies are maybe can be overlooked as well. Maybe you can give the second chance, but there are a couple of discrepancies where you cannot compromise. Maybe if finally there's a posh cases there, maybe you take action immediately. You can take the action. So when we are trying to prepare a policy, maybe we can create this kind of the mindset that here we are not going to compromise anymore. So before going for the background verification, that should be very clear. What is your take on this?
Absolutely, Ramesh, you called it out very beautifully. There are two things. One are negotiable and one are non-negotiables. Non-negotiables are not like 50 shades of gray. It's either black or it's white. And then there are areas where you've got to take a judgment call as HR. And therefore, I want to share with all your followers what I believe is a 3M framework. Of course, it's nothing to do with the organization, or maybe let me just add a 4M, not to digress from the topic, right? And I'm just thinking of this loud. 3M is what I thought initially, but 4Ms. The first, very, very clearly, is mindset. The second is mindfulness. The third is mitigation, and the fourth is monitoring. Let's start with monitoring first. The first question is, when do we really look at BGV? Do we look at the report after the person joins, before the person joins? Do we do these checks? The timing is very important so that when you're monitoring it, are you ahead of time? Because the other person is also leaving their job and coming in. And if you want to tell them 3 months into employment that, hey, sorry, you have a red BGV and therefore please leave, it's a dilemma question. So are you doing it beforehand or after? Second is mitigation. Now, as far as mitigation is concerned, which is like we spoke earlier, the judgment call on saying how bad is bad or how wrong is wrong, or do the values of our organization allow us to deal with this case in a pragmatic manner and therefore say, area of concern, but I'm okay to deal with this. Or it's a non-negotiable, like you mentioned, Romesh, and therefore I'm sorry, but we'll have to let you go, irrespective of your seniority in the organization. Third, mindfulness. Can you really get the HR team to be extremely mindful of the manner in which they deal with these things? Because a lot of these things are very sensitive matters. So instead of getting into the thing of saying, I've got a report and the report says this, and cast aspersions on people, the whole ability to be mindful of the situation and the person is very, very important to my mind, because it's a very sensitive thing. And of course, the last is the mindset. And I think if the mindset is deep-rooted in empathy, but at the same time, very clear and pragmatic when it comes to non-negotiables, I think this whole stigma around what should be disclosed, not disclosed, what does the manual say versus what the employee manual or whatever does not say, I think that can lead to a lot more comfort in the minds of the candidate to say, you may have submitted a CV which is incorrect, As an organization, we are just giving an example. We're absolutely fine with career breaks, or if you've done something, please make a complete disclosure. That will give a lot of comfort if a recruiter does that. And I think these 4 M's typically could be very helpful.
So I think we have been tried to cover the subject, and we have tried to touch upon all the important points. Anything else which is important and we did not touch you would like to share?
I think employment verification discrepancies highlighted nowadays. It's the need of more of rigorous and consistent verification processes. We need to make sure that we are working with right agencies. Agencies are fully equipped with technologies and are inconsistent with our laws and processes. Should be able to give rightly and timely report so that we organization can make the right decision. Proactively, definitely addressing these issues help both protect the organization reputation and candidates future as well, so that there is a trust factor. And when we are having the right decision, database decision, and disclosing our thoughts in a rightly manner without hurting someone's feelings, whatever the reason is of the discrepancy, we have to maintain the reputation of the organization and have the conversation in that way. This is going to create a wonderful environment for the employees and a great reputation of the organization.
So I think the boundary is very important. What is negotiable and what is not negotiable? If you're clear to the candidate, so you will also save your time, also the candidate's time. Thank you so much, Sahil and Urvashi, for joining the conversation and sharing your wonderful thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, Sahil.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, Urvashi.